Next May, everyone's eyes will be glued to the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But not all will be happy. Meghan's biracial makeup is causing some people's blood to boil. But the truth is that the monarch's bloodline has been mixed for centuries. Dr. Stephanie Myers recently published a book called Invisible Queen, Mixed Ancestry Revealed. It details the life of the first Black British royal, Sophia Charlotte, Queen of England. And we welcome Dr. Myers to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I was just showing off to our panel that I've had the book for a while now, and was so excited when the news came out and to be able to get you on the show. So thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm not going to give away the details because we want to hear it from you, but tell us a little bit about Queen Charlotte, because she was fascinating.
Queen Charlotte was fascinating, and thank you for the invitation to be here today. She was born of a family over in Germany that was kind of a noble family. Her mom, of course, was mixed race, and when you look at pictures of her brother and her mom in our book, you can see that. And so when King George was ready to get married, his family decided we need to find someone special for him.
Yes.
And they literally recruited all through Europe to interview women to see who would be the right wife. And they came up with Charlotte. They had no idea, she'd never met George, and they sent out an emissary to meet with her family. So George, I think, was a little bit of a trick. You know, he had some girlfriends on the side, and the family wasn't liking him too much, and his mom, the Dowager Augusta, she's like, this isn't gonna work. So after they checked Charlotte out, she was educated, she'd been to school, she'd learned languages.
She spoke several languages, didn't she?
She spoke at least 4 languages, German, French, English, she learned later, and she was really a talented woman, a musician, and they looked and said, wow, this girl has it all. So they brought her to England, and she was married, and he had his coronation as king right within the same time period, and Charlotte became the queen.
And am I correct that she, although in Germany, was a descendant of a Black Portuguese family?
Her mother was the descendant of a woman who was a concubine, as they say,
yes,
of one of the Portuguese kings. But we know that the Moors were big in Portugal.
Yes.
That's part of our Black history.
Yes.
They use the word Moor, but what that really means is African Black.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Negro, Moor, African
and they've
Black.
got her picture up on the screen now. If you take a look at her hair, that's a dead giveaway. We've got a beautiful Black woman.
Well, when I ran across her on the internet, totally by accident, and it said Queen of England for 57 years. I'm like, how could this possibly be?
It was never taught, at least in my school, it was never taught in history. I didn't even hear about Queen Charlotte at my beloved Howard University.
Yes.
Well, because I wasn't there yet.
Yeah, okay.
Because you would have heard about it. And really, that's my question, Dr. Myers, the political implications. People seem to think that Black folks fought in the American Revolution for George Washington, but in fact, one of the reasons 13 colonies left was because Britain was talking about abolishing slavery and elevating Africans to citizenship in their colonies. Did Charlotte play a role in this? Charlotte of Mecklenburg. I mean, did she?
Charlotte absolutely did. She became very good friends with the leaders of the abolitionist movement. Granville Sharp was the biggest voice for abolition. And so even though she's queen and all this Atlantic slave trade is going on, Charlotte was part of the anti-saccharin movement, which was anti-sugar, because the whole sugar trade was a big part of the plantation. Our ancestors were enslaved to go work on these sugar plantations.
And particularly in the Caribbean, I mean everywhere, but particularly in the Caribbean where the Brits were involved with slavery.
Absolutely.
Sugar was king.
Sugar was king, so there's a cartoon of Charlotte in our book where she's sitting around the table with her kids and she's saying, no sugar, and her kids are all frowned up. And they ran this cartoon, and in that picture, she really looks Black.
Yes.
There's no question. And it was the anti-saccharin movement. So what they did is they brought pictures of Charlotte to the slaves on the plantations in Virginia, and they said, look, if King George is married to her,
wow,
he must be all right. Come join the British side and we'll take you to Canada and you'll be free. So there was this influx of about thousands of enslaved people who ran away
30,000 in
response.
Virginia. Lord
Yes.
Dunmore and all those cats. You got to come for a book signing to Howard.
Absolutely. I love this. Do you have a question?
Question: how is she remembered in the British monarchy? I mean, how is she comparative to some of the queens we know from this generation of Queen Elizabeth, of course? But how was she referred to?
That's why we call the book The Invisible Queen. They just overlook her. They talk about
Do they overlook her,
George.
or do they overlook the fact that she was black?
Well, that's
Or is it both?
It's the whole mixed race thing. In America, one drop of blood puts you in slavery.
Yes.
There were black nobility all through Europe, not just in England, but in other countries as well. So the British knew, you know, then the courts, they would say, you know, she's kind of got that mulatto face. Oh, she kind of looks kind of funny, her lips are thick and her nose. This is all written down, and we have that in here. And so they knew that there was this heritage. But in exchange for her talent and her skills, they just kind of went with it, and it was all right. But this woman, Queen Charlotte, and this is why I really grew to love her as I wrote this story, she was so talented. She was a botanist. You know, today we talk about having gardens and growing our herbs. Prince Charles today is curator of the Kew Gardens, which she really expanded and helped make happen. So she was really smart about that. She helped introduce the smallpox vaccine. She vaccinated all of her kids.
That's
she had
amazing.
15 children. This woman had 15 children. Now, 2 of them died as infants, but the other 13 made it to adulthood. And one of the stories that really blew my mind, you ask how come we don't know about her, she discovered Mozart. Mozart was
really?
8 years old, and his parents brought him to the castle, and he played for her. And she said, this is talent. She recognized the talent and became his patron. And
Black women are
Mozart,
not a joke.
Black girl magic, black woman magic.
okay, black woman magic,
Patron, yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Spencer, do you-
Real empire, though.
Spencer, a question for Dr. Myers.
Yes, so we talk about Charlotte, North Carolina. If you could tell us a little bit about the connection to Charlotte, and then also, what does this mean in terms of Harry? How is Charlotte related to Harry?
Okay, well, Charlotte, North Carolina is known as the Queen City, and that's Charlotte. Charlottesville, and there are places all over the world named for her. In New Zealand, there are places, in Canada.
Well, I'm
other
sorry,
parts of
but you just
America.
said something that like set off sound bells, because I'm thinking about the Charlottesville rally.
No question.
Yes.
And the
about
racists
that?
down there with their tiki torches.
Right. But
Marching,
Viola's is now in Charlotte.
but marching in her city.
That's right.
And they don't know their history.
Yes,
And
at all.
unfortunately, we don't know enough of our history.
You're right, Michelle. That's
And
the
we
first time
simply
we heard
have to get the story out. And it's so important for our young people to read our book and to read history and realize we're not new to the table.
Right.
Now, sure, we've had some wonderful success stories, and we're all proud of President Obama and the First Lady and what they've done, and now we're going to have this girl in the royal family. All of these things are important, but what's important also is someone can come from something very modest, go to school, learn, get sharp, and then push their way into into power and influence,
And
that's
take over
exactly
the world.
what she did.
I am being told that we have to go to the break, but tell us quickly, how can people buy your book?
Yes.
Okay, well, we have a website, myerspublishing.com. www.myerspublishing.com is
Another
our
black
website.
woman who is the master of her own
That's
fate.
right.
myerspublishing.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong. He
Unfiltered.
wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.